So I am a user experience designer, and I run my own UX design consultancy back in New York City. I'm actually Canadian, though. And through that, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different companies in many industries, different sizes, different stages. And through that, it's become really evident that user experience is just so popular, and we all know this. But as with anything that becomes quite popular, there's also a lot of misconceptions that come about. And so one of those misconceptions is that user experience can be your silver bullet to success. At least once a week, I get an email that says, "Can you help us with our UX? We know it's going to solve all of our problems." And so we know UX is important and that it can be really impactful for our businesses. It can be a great competitive advantage, but I think there's another competitive advantage that can almost be more powerful than UX. And the reason is that we skip over this competitive advantage a lot because we rush into design. We rush the focus on user experience. And so I'm going to tell you about that competitive advantage, and I'm also going to share exact steps that you can do to start applying this next week, hopefully, in whatever you're working on and whatever stage you're at. But first, I want to tell you a bit of a story about something that happened to me on Twitter a few days ago, actually. I was tweaking this talk back in New York City at one of my favorite coffee shops, and someone tweeted me this. They said, "I like UI, entrepreneurship, analytical thinking, graphic design, coding, and I don't like talking with many people. Is UX a career for me?" And without missing a beat, I sent them back this. I said, "The honest answer is that this is probably not the career for you. It's probably not going to work out." And I kind of feel bad because the person deleted their tweet since then, but it's true. UX is about people. It's about people. It's about understanding who they are, what matters to them, what problems matter to them, what's keeping them from achieving those problems. It's all about understanding people. But there's a little bit of a problem. We say that user experience is about people, and we say that we do human-centered design and that we always put the user at the center of our focus. But what we say, I think, is often really different from what we actually do in our day-to-day practice as designers, developers, product people, wherever you fall. So I want to tell you a little story. There's this great article in the New York Times. It was from last year. It's called "Solving All the Wrong Problems." And it's by this woman, Allison Arieff, and she writes about architecture and design. And she lives in the Bay Area, so she hears about lots of different companies. She starts the article off with a laundry list of companies that she heard about recently. So the first one is a service that will pack your suitcase virtually. I'm not sure how that works, but someone's working on it, or was. Next, a smart button to alert you when your fly is down, because apparently we need to be solving that problem. Next one, an app to analyze the quality of your French kissing. These are all real, according to her. She's heard about these being worked on. A service to send someone to fill up your car with gas. So maybe it's useful. It doesn't seem very green to me, but it could save time not waiting in line. And then lastly, a sensor to alert you when your child's diaper needs changing. And I don't have kids, but I think if we've survived this long without this, I'm not sure why we need to start solving this problem. And in the article, she says this. She says, if the most fundamental definition of design is to solve problems, why are so many of us working on problems that really don't exist? And I'm so passionate about this because I hear so many ideas similar to this, and I just think to myself, why are we spending time on these problems? So I want to hone in on that a little bit. I started to think, why does this happen? And think about the different companies that I've worked with in the past. And one thing that stood out to me is that I think we rush into that solution phase and we don't fall in love with the problem. And so here's what that looks like in our product development process. And you could probably call these phases different things. We could debate the semantics. And of course, these are often happening in parallel. But here's what it looks like. We jump into this solution phase, and what we often skip over is that yellow problem step. Or we spend one afternoon with a bunch of Post-it notes and candy, like saying we're doing research or something. And that is problematic. because it rushes this solution and it doesn't let us fall in love with the problem, which is so important. And I love this Einstein quote. I'm sure you've all heard it, but it's so simple. If he were to spend 1 hour to save the world, he would spend 55 minutes on the problem and 5 minutes on the solution. And it just stands out to me because we often do the opposite. So what we have to figure out is, how do we take back that problem? How do we fall in love with that problem? And how do we make it exist throughout our product development process? How do we explore it? And how do we use it to help inform the solution, not just be something that we think about and check off on our product management tool as, oh, yep, we did discovery and strategy. Another observation I have is that we are obsessed with building and making things. And I love building things. You all love building things. There's nothing wrong with building things. The problem is that we obsess about it prematurely and for the wrong reasons. So I think of all the companies that I've worked with that come to me, and I can tell that they have been rushing into building and not rushing with informed knowledge from research. And so here are some reasons that I think a lot of us rush into building, and I'll be the first to raise my hand. I have committed many of these. And a lot of the companies that I've worked with, and probably some of you have done these as well. So maybe you're even here today and you rushed to build something because you knew you were coming here today, you had the opportunity to maybe meet investors, so you scrambled together and built something. It's great you built something. Maybe you built something because you wanted to recruit talent. You thought, well, if I can just have something to show people, they'll be more excited to come work with me on this product. Or you want to be first to market, have something to sell, or just have that feeling of progress. And the danger here is that we don't want to get trapped in these things that create a false sense of progress. Because sure, we could be checking things off our to-do lists. We could feel like, well, I have a prototype on my phone now. I have something I can show investors or at a sales meeting. But the danger is that, how do you know you're building the right thing? In that rush to build, there's such a risk that you won't be building the right thing because you skipped over truly understanding the problem. So speaking of building the right thing, I don't know who's heard about Juicero? Okay, some people. So you know bits of this story, but Juicero is a juicer, and it was touted as almost being the Tesla of juicers. And super organic, the best juice made in Earth and the universe. These packets with juice, or not juice, fruit and vegetables cut up in specific ways. So you shove it in the machine, turn it on, it juices all the juice. They raised $120 million, including money from Google Ventures. They launched this as $700. The market didn't like it, so they took the price down to $3.99, I think. And there was one small problem. Whenever it kind of got out into the market and people could get their hands on it, this is what happened. Some reporters did a little experiment, and it turned out, there's no audio, but it turned out that you can juice those packages just with your own bare hands faster than the machine could juice the juice for you. So after this happened, articles were flurrying around, tweets were storming, and the whole question was, how did this happen? How do you go from having this idea to raising $120 million and then having this happen? How do you create something that solves a wrong problem or possibly a problem that didn't exist? And so I wanted to understand this a little more, so I did some research about Juicero. And before there was the juicing machine, there were juice shops in New York called Organic Avenue. And these juice shops came about because the founder had a really, really strict, self-imposed, I think, dietary regime. He was way off on the organic spectrum. And he said, in this Times article, the reporter said, the founder was hoping to create an eatery that was comparative to his dietary needs and his co-founder. So emphasis here, he was making something for he and his co-founder. And then what happened was the Organic Avenue juice shops didn't last for very long. I can't remember how. I did go to them in New York. But when the juice shops shut down, he was ousted from the board or something, and he said, well, where am I going to get my juice from now? Again, he's concerned about him, his problems, and that is then how Juicero started. He went on to make the juice machine. And the problem is, when you design for you solve the wrong problems, you make really bad assumptions, and you ultimately create a product that has a lot of risk because you've built it for yourself, and you overthink everything, and you probably spend a lot of time and money on it. And I say this phrase, "you are not the user," at least like 20 times a week to clients. That might be an exaggeration, but a lot, because I see this all the time. We're in meetings and people say, well, I would do it this way, my cousin would do it this way, so-and-so would do it this way, and I can tell that they're designing for themselves. And the thing is, you might be a user of this product. If I made a running app, I would definitely be a user of it, but I wouldn't be normal because I'm too close to it. I'm probably too emotionally connected, invested financially with time, and so I don't want you guys to design for you because you're not the user. So raise your right hands and say, I am not the user. And I'm serious, it sounds cheesy, but when you can really ingrain this in your belief system and your culture, it will put a new emphasis on research, and you can call each other out a lot easier. So that person in your meeting who says, well, my cousin says they do this, that, and the other, you can say, well, maybe they're not the user. So this is good ammo when you need it. But I don't want this to happen to you. I don't want you to end up like Juicero, building something that people don't want. Because back to this competitive advantage, the most competitive advantage you can have is how well you know your customers, how well you know your tribe, your future customers, your current customers, because when you know them really, really well, you can create something that they really want, not something that you cross your fingers and hope that they need. So I want to give you a really quick case study from my own business. So I do one-on-one consulting with a lot of companies, and I've also ventured into online learning. So one question I get asked all the time is, will you help me with my user experience portfolio? And I'm Canadian, so maybe it's the nice Canadian in me, but I always sit there at my laptop, respond to the questions, send people notes, links to videos and things. And I realized at one point this summer, it was just a really bad use of my time. I couldn't keep up with it anymore. So I thought to myself, there is a lot of demand around user experience portfolios, apparently, because I was being asked this. So I decided, okay, I'm going to embark on a little experiment. And I didn't go and build anything. What I did was I went and understood my people. So I'm lucky because I have an audience, and I went and surveyed them. I'd send a weekly user experience newsletter, so I just dropped a link and I said, fill out this survey if you are interested in portfolios. And so I sent that out. 5 days later, I checked the survey results, and 400 people responded. Now, this was not multiple choice, yes, no questions. These were 6 open-ended questions, and people literally wrote me paragraphs. They were pouring their heart out. Some of them were actually begging me to let them into this beta, which I didn't even know what the product I was creating was, but they were begging me, some of them offering to pay to secure their spot for this thing that didn't even exist. So I thought, okay, this is validation. I need to keep going. So I threw up a landing page, decided I would do a 90-minute workshop and see if anyone would buy it. And I sent another email and I said, okay, we're doing this 90 minutes, $39. And in 2 days, 40 people registered. And so then I thought, now I have to make this thing. So I went off, made the workshop, and then I left registration open for 10 days total, and 85 people ended up purchasing this. And I had to shut it down because I didn't want more people than that. It was just going to be too hard to manage and not be able to give everyone that personal attention I wanted. And then I taught the class live. And the interesting thing was, 400 people responded to that survey where I asked them about their problems, what was keeping them from doing a portfolio, and 85 enrolled. So that means a conversion rate of 21.25. And anything I've read says that about a 2% conversion is good. So I was blown away. And the crazy thing was, I had 68 people on a waiting list because I shut down the registration. So this turned into now my half-year project on user experience portfolios, where I've continued to do this program month after month, experimenting with pricing, experimenting with marketing. I taught it live 3 months in a row, and then I finally realized I can't do this anymore. Live, it's too much. The time zones were an issue. So I've recorded everything, and now I'm experimenting with how to scale this. But it was not on my radar at all for this year. This was a total side project accident. But to go from nothing to, these numbers are a little out of date, but I think it's around $25,000 in sales with pretty limited expenses is a pretty good little side project. So the question is, how did I do this? How was I able to create something that people actually wanted? So this brings me to these 5 steps that you can do next week with your team, no matter what size, no matter what stage you're at. You'll be able to apply this so you can understand your customer better than your competitors, maybe even better than they know themselves. So first, you have to ask the right questions. And by that, I mean, you don't want to ask people things like, what would you like in a finance app, fitness app? Don't ask them about the future. They don't know. They can't explain that. What people are really good at is telling you their problems. So ask them questions that uncover their problems. And I always like to ask questions that map back to, what are the goals you have? What are the outcomes that you want to achieve? What is keeping you from doing these things? What obstacles are coming up? When you focus your questions around these things, you can get awesome, awesome information back. So for my portfolio quiz or survey that I put together, it was 6 questions, really, really simple, and every question mapped back to a goal, a problem, or a value. You'll be able to read these later because I'll give you a link to the slides. But when you ask the right questions, you get gold back. You get to go inside their heads, read things in their own words, and be equipped with all the knowledge you need about what's keeping them from where they want to be. So for example, I want to create a user experience portfolio because I want to get a job in UX. That was just one person's answer, but other people said, I want to get an internship. I need it to apply to a grad program. I want freelance clients. I need a promotion. And some of those use cases I hadn't even thought about yet. Next, my biggest problem when creating an awesome portfolio, knowing what hiring managers want to see. But when I looked at the answers that 400 other people gave, it armed me with so much knowledge. I want to fix this problem. So looking at the obstacles people had, I was able to use these answers and then help it inform the exact product I was making. Now, this was an online course, so it informed my curriculum, but if you ask similar questions, you can use those to figure out what features should you include in your product. And then the problems, I was able to use this information to not only inform the curriculum, but also arm me with the insight into what I needed to put on the sales page in order to make them think, oh, this could be a solution for me. So I literally just borrow from what they answered in the survey and then turn around to use it on my sales page, in my emails, things like that. So the next question you're probably wondering is, where do I find these people? And this is a whole other talk. Don't ask your friends and family or people in coffee shops because you don't know if they have the criteria of the people that would use your products. They are complete strangers, and you could argue, well, it's better than doing no research, but I think it's a waste of time. You should go find people that are more suited to the criteria of who's going to use your product because it's pretty simple. You have to think, where do they hang out? And they're online. They're on Facebook. They're in Facebook groups. They're tweeting. They're watching YouTube videos, commenting on YouTube videos. They're on message boards. They're at in-person meetups. They're all these places. So when people say, well, I don't know where to find the people who might use my product, I really just think it's laziness because they're right there. All you have to do is go to these places and listen. So what I listened for was, what are people putting into Google? It's pretty simple. I just did that search, and I was able to instantly see a lot of the popular searches around portfolios. Same thing at the bottom. Don't forget that one. You can get a lot of great insight from the bottom links as well. Quora, we just heard about Quora. Quora is another great example, and I was lucky because I had a whole topic around portfolios. YouTube, again, you get the idea. So then, once you do a survey and you need to analyze what they've said. And so what do you listen for? This is where a lot of people get caught up and they get intimidated because they think, how do I make sense of 400 responses? Well, it's simple. You just think about what were the original goals, what are their problems, what is the value of that goal, what concerns do they have, and when you break it down, it starts to become pretty clear. So for me, some of the goals that people had for their portfolio, and these are my own words, so these are my insights. They wanted to create a concise portfolio, stand out to recruiters, get a job, show their personality, tell the story of their projects, and get more clients. And then what's really helpful is if you take those insights that you have and then match them to quotes that people had in their answers. So then these blue quotes, I can constantly refer back to them in my marketing when I'm working on the curriculum. And so it unsilos or de-silos that problem that we saw in the beginning where we just do the research and then we run off and build. As I am building, I am referring to that research in a little tab in my browser, and I'm constantly going back and forth to make sure I am building the right thing. I do the same things with obstacles. I'm going to go a little bit quicker here. But again, obstacles, don't know what to show, don't know what companies expect, I feel overwhelmed. This was great material to be able to work into my sales page so I could address these obstacles and people would feel like I understood them. And that builds so much trust. And I think that's what contributed to that 21.25 conversion rate. So next, you have to figure out, well, what do you make after you've looked at your research? And you just make what people want. And you're probably thinking, well, how do I know that? And it's simple. You look at where people are right now, where they want to be, and the obstacles. And this is all just in the 400 responses in my Google survey. So I refer back to it, look at where they are, where they want to be, and the obstacles. And then what I built was I built the thing that helped them move from those obstacles to the outcome. So build the thing that helped them get over the thing that was stopping them from making their portfolio so that they could finally make it. The idea is you want to solve their struggle before you build the dream, because I know we're all visionaries in here, and I know that we have the idea of what our product or company could be in 1 year, and 3 years, and 5 years. But if you build the 5-year first, you miss that opportunity to solve that one huge problem for them. But if you can solve that one problem first, then that's like the light bulb moment for them. And they will love you forever, they will trust you, and they will be along with you for that ride as you go to 1, 3, 5 years down the road. So don't build that big thing that you want to build, just build that tiny little thing that gets them from going from those obstacles to that outcome that they really want to achieve, that you know from your research. And the added bonus, like I said, is that you will be armed with everything you need for your marketing, emails, landing pages, whatever else. And then finally, you need to get into this habit of launching, learning, tweaking, and repeating. It's not just a one-time thing. We know this. We're always iterating. But in the beginning, in those primary launches, you want to be aiming for, I think, these 4 things. Paying customers, so I had 85, which was totally unplanned and really great. Outcomes achieved, they've made portfolios, they're getting hired at companies like General Motors, Salesforce, they're getting freelance clients, internships. It's amazing. Raving testimonials, I now am equipped with tons of video testimonials from these people, which helps me then move more people through and learn all the benefits that they experienced. And then you have this tribe of people that trusts you. So in my case, I have 200 people in a Facebook group that I can now keep going back to, keep listening to, and figuring out what can I do to help them in the future? What is their next problem I could solve if I wanted to? And you need to get in this cycle of launching and learning, because it's never an overnight success, even though it seems like it, especially when it's not our company. We need to be constantly learning, and that blue learning step is where we're doing the research, where we're constantly doing another survey, talking to people one-on-one, or doing usability tests and things like that. So to help you take action, wrapping up really quick here, you can do these things with your team next week, and these slides will be available, but you can have these discussions to really ask yourselves, are you building too fast? Do you need to hit pause? Do you need to do some research? And the answer is yes. And you need to think, you want to invest in those small details that matter right now. What helps people get to the outcome? Don't worry about polishing the design just yet. Sometimes I can't believe I'm saying that, but sometimes the focus on the design is premature. Don't focus on the solution, focus on the problem. And know your people better than they know themselves, because they will feel like you know them and they will trust you because you are the person that has the solution because you understand their problem. So if you want to get these slides, and also I have kind of a more in-depth little PDF I put together, it's totally free. You can be able to walk through those steps and hopefully get that competitive advantage so you can know your audience and have that knowledge to equip you better than your competitors. So thank you.